Welcome to Freedom to Know Wellness, a platform where we will discuss and hear from the lived experiences of those managing disabilities due to chronic pain and complex medical conditions, female reproductive challenges, and how these conditions affect the individual's mental health. I am your host, Darnell Samuels. Today, we will be discussing a common yet underrated complex medical condition known as eczema. Eczema is a skin condition that affects 17% of Canadians. There are several types of eczema, but the most common forms are atopic eczema and eczema of the hands. Because it's so prevalent, often to the general public, eczema is only known as an annoying, inflamed, itchy, scaly, bumpy, red or brown patches that infect areas such as the hands, elbows, neck, cheeks, ankles, and feet, and sometimes infect the larger areas such as the stomach, back, or legs. But if you don't know an individual that has a serious case of eczema, you wouldn't understand how severe and life-impacting, or should I say, life-hindering, eczema can be on a person's life. The person I'm interviewing today will share exactly how bad it can be. But before we start, here is some context about eczema's complications. According to the Eczema Society of Canada, in worsened cases, eczema can cause the breaking of the skin, resulting in pus or a watery substance that oozes out, then dries, scales over, crusts, then hardens, then breaks open again. Often this action happens simultaneously, infecting not just the smaller areas of the body, but the eyes, the scalp, the face, and even the entire body. There are three major complications that can occur with severe eczema. The first and most common one is neurodermatitis, which occurs when the scratched area becomes thick and leathery and darkens in appearance, permanently damaging the skin color. The second is eczema herpeticum, a contagious herpes outbreak similar to the virus that causes cold sores. And lastly, eye complications. Because of how eczema affects the body, there is still debate on whether eczema is an autoimmune disease or just a skin condition. Today on Freedom to Know Wellness, I will be interviewing a beloved person in my life, my nephew, Darnell Samuels. Darnell's eczema developed into probably the worst case of aggressive eczema that I and many doctors, from what they had said, had ever seen. Darnell's story will be an interesting one, as he shares his experience of being hospitalized for lengthy durations on different occasions. His worst was due to complications of eczema herpeticum, which infected his entire body. Darnell will share his experience, but an important part that wasn't mentioned during the interview, but Darnell wanted our FTKW followers to know, that the eczema herpeticum infections was so severe in his face and scalp that the specialist at Sunnybrook was concerned that he would lose his eyesight and hearing. He was monitored and given an aggressive round of antibiotics to prevent this from occurring. I tell you, during that time, my nephew's skin looked like a burn victim. The white of his epidermis was exposed, combined with blood, pus, and neurodermatitis complications. But the person I see here now, compared to the person I saw even 6 years ago, looks like a completely different man. Please advise, the information provided in this episode of Freedom to Know Wellness is from the opinions of the interviewer and interviewee. For further medical advice, please contact your practitioner. Now, let's begin the interview. I would like to welcome to the Freedom to Know Wellness platform my beloved nephew, Darnell Samuels. Welcome to the Freedom to Know Wellness platform. How are you doing today, Darnell?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me. And to
That's
Michelle.
For those who may be aware of Darnell Samuels, he actually has his own podcast and co-hosts with a good friend of his. What is the name of your podcast again, Darnell?
So I have two podcasts. I have one is the Sixth Sense Report, with my co-host Joel Nikoloff, and we use the science of theology and economics to interpret events that impact Canadians. And then my second podcast is called Thanks Coach, where I do interviews with uh, guys I used to coach with who are now coaching, guys I used to coach as kids who are now coaching, and guys who used to coach me as a kid who are coaching. So it's just
Okay.
basically a relationship between player coach.
Oh, nice. Nice. I didn't know about the second podcast, so I have to look into that one as well. So tell me a little bit about yourself in regards to your personal life.
Yeah, so I'm a teacher uh, at TD Christian. I teach grade 10 Bible and grade 11 anthropology, sociology, psychology. I attend Maple Avenue Baptist Church in Georgetown. I'm a basketball guy. I'm a ball is life guy.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I'm married, coming on 10 years in a couple months
Yeah.
to Tyra.
Yeah. Amazing woman. Absolutely amazing woman. Well, Darnell, I know you're no stranger to the eczema condition. Like I remember I've seen you since you were a toddler having this condition, but at what age did you really understand that you had eczema and it actually affected you?
I'd have to say probably my teens. As a kid, you don't really, it's just itchy, you just keep it moving.
Hmm.
But like my teens, probably 17, 18. That's when it just really just started to become annoying.
Okay.
Right, really just hindering me. Like I said, I played basketball, so it didn't really keep me from hooping. It got worse by the time I left high school, like in my early 20s.
So when you were saying that you were still able to play basketball with your eczema condition, were you having a certain type of treatment or regimen that you had to be able to help you to manage at that time, or were you just managing it just generally as living?
No, I generally was on steroid cream.
Okay. And for a time being, that was able to help manage the condition overall.
Yeah, yeah, it just kinda kept everything at bay on the
Hmm.
surface, but, on the inside, I was, like, dying, so to speak. So, not emotionally dying,
Hmm.
but physically. So, like, because you're covering up the outside, you're eating the things you shouldn't be eating. So sometimes you look good on the outside, so you're like, "Alright, so I must be healthy."
Hmm.
But then you're continually to eat the things that are, flaring you up on the inside.
Okay. Okay. So I know with eczema, based on the Eczema Society of Canada has mentioned that oftentimes that it could be triggered due to hereditary. So oftentimes we can inherit it from our family members. Um, Allergies based on food, clothing, product sensitivities. Triggers could be caused from soaps, clothing. What did you find at least in your teen years? Was your biggest triggers?
Huh, man, I wasn't watching that.
You're just like put the cream on, do what I got to do, and keep going.
Eat my Doritos, eat my patties, eat my 6 burgers from Burger King, eat my 2 subs from Subway. Man, no, I'm not concerned about that. I
So
just I did whatever I want. There was no rules.
okay. So when it started to get more irritating, because when you were a child, it was just the general, they have like, there's three complications that they mention that is very common for eczema outbreaks. There's one called neurodermatitis, which is where your skin becomes more leathery, more patchy. Was that more the experience that you were having when you were younger compared to when it got worse, or was just general patches at that time?
I was just general patches.
Okay. So once it started to worsen, what was the complications that you started to endure?
Definitely lack of sleep for sure.
Okay.
Um, it's spreading. So, for example, it gets worse by the time I get to Sheridan, my first year of
Okay.
college. So, my first year of college, and the reason why was my diet just was, man, it was bad. My diet was really bad because I'm on the go, I'm on the fly.
Hmm.
right? Like French vanillas, a lot of Tim Hortons. That's why I don't eat Tim Hortons to this day, man. French vanillas, apple fritters,
Just quick things to eat just to be able
Eggo's
to
cream.
get through
Yeah,
college. Yeah.
yeah, sugary teas. I grew up drinking sugary tea. Um,
So when you say that it started to affect your sleep, what do you mean? Like, can you be able to give an
oh
example?
yeah, yeah, just tossing and turning. You just can't shut down because you're always itchy.
Okay. So that
Because it's kind of hard because like you're sleeping, but then you want to itch, and then you're itching, so you're up.
so in other words, the itching would wake you up out of your sleep.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, 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 for sure.
Okay. Okay. So as it progressively started to worsen, um, like what was the story in regards to your treatment plan and making the changes in your diet, etc.?
Well, it was kind of sporadic. My mom was, my mom was just worried.
Hmm.
And then everybody had something to say, so I was just bouncing from different treatment to treatment. Like oh, drink some sour sup. Dude, drink this oatmeal bath. Eat this, eat that. Put on this black soap. This that.
Yeah.
Yo, I was on 10 different treatments, man. I was on 10 different treatments and couldn't tell what was working from what wasn't, and that was the most frustrating part.
Hmm.
Um, that was the most frustrating part. And then of course you go to the specialists. They'll tell you to put on cream. Yeah, and then yeah, and that's when it got really bad. I had to drop out of school. I dropped
So
out of Sheridan.
So this is where they talk about that when it becomes so severe that it can negatively impact your life. And that for you having to drop out of school, that is severely impacting your life in a negative way. Um, so you were saying that you were trying all these different types of treatments, whether it's home treatments that you'd hear that family members would mention, or you would also be trying the medical treatments that the doctors had you on, which were the steroid creams, correct?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay. So with all these different treatments that you're taking, the itching became worse. Like were you having worsened outbreaks? Were this at this point in time were you experiencing the pussing or the oozing? Had it gotten to that severity yet, or was this extreme itching to the point that you just couldn't take it anymore?
Well, yeah, just definitely the extreme itching. So, like one of the treatments, by the time I went to Sunnybrook for the first time, um, you know, man, so they're trying out some different stuff. So I don't know. For some reason, they think this is the time to start experimenting on people.
So back up a
Um,
bit. You mentioned Sunnybrook. I know the story, but for our listeners, how did it get to the point where you had to go to Sunnybrook? What was the transition with your doctors to the point that they said, "Okay, you know what? You need to go to
well,
Sunnybrook for treatment."
well, well, no, no, no. Well, there's two times. There's two times I
Okay.
went to Sunnybrook, like like early 2000s. I was in
Yes.
Sunnybrook.
Yeah.
To see the specialist. And, he had his students there and poking and prodding. And they're like, okay, yo, let's put him on some methotrexate, which is a cancer medication.
Okay.
Um, let's try this out. Let's try this out. So it was a lot of testing out and stuff like that. And then a high dose of steroid cream. So it was a higher dose. It was more expensive, but because of our health plan, it was next to nothing. So I was using it recklessly. And I was using it a lot. And so what ends up happening is I'm using the steroid cream now fully religiously for about 10 years, possibly.
So you were
So
on the
you're not,
you were on the
you're
treatment prior to, and then now when you're at Sunnybrook, you're doing this cancer treatment plus a treatment cream on top of
yeah,
it.
yeah. And so eventually I came off the methotrexate and started using the heavy steroid cream um, and basically, like, 'cause you're only supposed to be on it for about 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
The
So I was on it for like about,
the steroid cream?
yeah.
Oh, wow.
So I was on it for like 10 years.
And the
So I
doctors were
was like,
monitoring you with it being on for 10 years, or you're just like, "Forget it. No, I'm just using my own thing or doing my own
no,
thing."
there was no monitoring.
Oh, wow.
So I would just all I had to do was just, I you know, I was like, Pookie at what's it called? New Jack City, man. I was a fiend out here, man. I'm itching. I'm calling my doctor. Like I was like, yo, doc, let me get some more. Let me get a taste. Let me get a taste. Had
Yeah.
me out here looking like a damn crackhead. All I had to do was call, and then I got my refill, put
Mhm.
it on, kept it moving, and so I was on that for about 10 years or whatever, more than I should have. And so
Wow.
that's what leads me into like the 2015 when I went to Sunnybrook. And so what ended up happening was, I ended up getting married, and yeah, and it would just made the marriage complicated, because like I had to travel with the stuff, and if they confiscated it, then I'd be in trouble.
Oh,
But
really?
anyways, yeah. Just in
But
case, yeah, like, sometimes I'm without it, and then it becomes problematic. But anyways, what ends up happening is, I went to my doctor, um, and, talk about getting married, me getting married and stuff like that. He's like, "Oh," and he goes, "Oh, you don't plan to have kids, do you?"
wow.
"Pardon?"
I
I
said,
was like,
"Wow."
"Yeah, I do, yeah. Yeah, why, man? What's up?" So, "Yeah, yeah, the cream could potentially hinder that that possibility." I almost choked this guy. I was like, "All right, I'm done. I quit. I quit." And I came off the cold turkey.
So hold on a second, before you continue. This doctor was monitoring you, so to speak, because he kept providing the prescription,
Yeah.
knowing that, it's a treatment, it's helping you to manage, but he didn't forewarn you of what the side effects were prior to.
No. No.
Okay, okay. And there was no other medications they thought that they could recommend to you? They never said anything, just kept giving you the prescription nonetheless. Okay, alright, continue.
Yeah. And so I came off of it cold turkey. Now, in God's providence,
Mhm,
um, I was there. So I ran out of the cream, right? And so
mhm.
usually there's a window where I can go without it for about a week or two. And then I made like three consecutive appointments, and I missed all three, which is crazy because like usually, I got him. At that point I couldn't call in. I had to go in to see him, and I just kept missing the appointments for whatever reason. And for the last appointment that I had to make sure I had to get it.
Mhm.
Um, like, all right, I already missed like two straight appointments. I gotta get there because I gotta get my refill. Right, I'm on my fiend mode, and I jumped in the car to go. I'm like, all right, I'm about to go get my stuff, and my car doesn't start. My car didn't start. And at that point, I was like, "Oh, F." I was like, "Oh, boy." And at that point, I knew, okay, boy, you in for a roller coaster ride for the next couple years. That was it. After that point, I was like, okay, I'm done. I just looked up to the sky, said, Lord, I'm done. I'm done. And then I just got out the car, went home, and just said, all right, what happens next? And that's when I started going cold turkey, and that's when I started going through the withdrawals. And then that's what led me into Sunnybrook the first time, where because I wasn't sleeping, my legs swole up. No, that was St. Mike's. St.
Mhm.
Mike's.
Yeah, that was Sam X, yeah.
I was in St. Mike's October, so 2015 this happens. 2015, um, October, I go to St. Mike's. So I stopped using it in July, and then my body started going through withdrawal. Went to St. Mike's because my legs were swelling up. I couldn't walk. Um, yeah, I basically couldn't walk. I couldn't get into the shower by myself. I couldn't get into bed because my legs were so heavy. So like Tyra would have to lift my legs up to put me into bed. And so at that point, Tyra was just like, "All right." She's like, "Hop in the car." I was in the back seat. I had to put my feet up, and I was at St. Mike's for about 2 or 3 weeks, I think.
I believe you were in the ICU at that point?
No, that
Or
was
something.
Sunnybrook.
Oh, that was
No, that
Sunnybrook,
was
okay,
Sunnybrook after, yeah.
okay, okay. Alright, so we'll get to that point, because 'cause I'm now jumping ahead based on memory. But, can you describe to our listeners, like, you mentioned that your legs are swollen. What was the, status of your skin at that point? Because 'Cause we're seeing how you look now.
Inflamed. It was inflamed. Yeah, it was inflamed. But yeah, because I wasn't sleeping, my lymphatic system wasn't draining.
Okay,
So that was part of the issue. Yeah, my lymphatic system wasn't draining because my body wasn't resting.
okay, okay.
But and I don't even think they figured that out. I don't even think I was in there for a while and they didn't even sort that out. So um they didn't even sort that out with me. Yo, man, yo, I mean, one time I
Mhm.
was in the hospital and the doctor, this guy just got frustrated with me, man. He's just like, look, man, look, yo, just stand up, yo, stop fooling around. Like, yo, come on, man, get up, get up. He's pulling me out of bed. He's like, yo, start walking, like walk, like you're not, like, yo, you're not trying now. He just wanted to get me out of there, man. I was like, oh man. So
And that is the thing. You would think when it comes to eczema, and this is what I was trying to state in the beginning, that a lot of times we just think, okay, it's nothing. It should be something that you could easily just, overcome because it's so common. But we
mhm,
don't understand that when it gets to that severity, like you were mentioning, you were on that medication for so long, and this was just on the skin. And you wouldn't think, oh, if you're taking something on the skin, that you would be going through withdrawal, very similar to what a drug addict would be going through, but except it
yeah,
was coming out through your skin.
yeah,
And
yeah,
having that extreme inflammation, there's that lack of understanding that this is a serious case and you need help. And unfortunately,
hmm,
that's what's almost like medical gaslighting because they're not believing that this is the severity of what's happening with you
hmm, hmm.
and you're not sleeping. So, anyways, continue.
Yeah, and so yeah, and then on top of that, there was like profuse sweating. Um yeah, but it was very tough. But Tyra was by my side the whole time. She would sleep in the chair next to me. She was determined, not for me to eat any of the hospital food. So she would always go home cook and then bring like all the food and tray, and put it in the fridge. And so she was, yeah, the nurses loved her because she was my nurse. Yeah, like, yeah, she come change my
Yeah,
sheets, shower, bathe me, um, bring me my food, slept next to me. I didn't have to deal with um I didn't have to really deal with the nurses because Tyra was there to do everything.
yeah.
So and that helped a lot, of course, help me get the heck out of there. So I was in there like mid October, and then about 4 weeks later in November, I caught an infection in my face, and I ended up at Sunnybrook.
Okay. So the infection in your face, and unfortunately, I don't have the image for that, but I remember seeing you, like your skin looked like a burn victim.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. And I remember thinking, like, it was very scary for us as your family members seeing you going through it. Never mind, can imagine how you must have been feeling. And
And yeah, and sorry, and it all started from cold sores. It was a cold sore.
okay. And so actually that's one of the things that they mentioned is one of the forms of complications. I'm just looking back to my notes here. It's called eczema herpeticum, which is an outbreak similar to the virus of cold sores. And that's one of the major complications that they say that can
Mhm,
occur.
mhm.
And so that was what produced that type of burn victim type of look to your skin because of that
Yeah,
inflammation. Wow.
yeah, yeah.
Wow. And so I'm going to backtrack and go back to this point. Like your mental health, when you were in high school, sorry, when you were in college and you had to drop out because of your skin condition, how did you manage your mental health with that?
I didn't. Spiraled out of control. I was off the grid by the time I dropped out of school. I wasn't doing anything. Just in my room, thinking my life is over. I developed agoraphobia, fear of
Mm,
outdoors, being around people.
mhm,
And so I never really left my house until Um, yeah, I never really left my house. I never really was around people. Because yeah, you just feel like crap and you look like crap. Um, and the only time I left was when my basketball coach, Marlene, she would come and take me to church. That was the only time I left the house.
Mhm.
Which was nice, because, fresh air, sun, but she'd take me to church. I'm not a Christian. I wasn't a Christian at that point.
Mhm.
So that's my introduction, to me getting there, to becoming a Christian. But
Mhm.
she kept taking me. And then eventually she stopped attending. But I'm a creature of habit, so I just kept going on my own,
Mhm.
and, and then eventually I came to faith,
Okay. Okay.
and that helped. That really helped, me ground my mental health because I spiraled out of control. I hit basically like rock bottom, and so for me, coming to faith was anchoring. Not like, oh, yes, like, yeah, you have faith, God will help, but it helped in other ways. Like, it just made sense. You studying the scriptures and start making sense of the world around you, and that helped.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
understanding and giving real meaning to suffering versus
Yes.
coming out of a postmodern mindset that I was coming out of where suffering is meaningless.
Mhm.
And so if it's
Mm.
meaningless, well, then what are we doing? So yeah.
Right. So faith was really what helped grounded you through the through the mental health challenge that you were going through at that time.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, no, I remember seeing you. I remember one time you came by my place and just the itching that you were going through. It was so hard for you. I remember, we had to put you in the shower just to be able to manage. And I just thought to myself, my God, what is my nephew going through? And yeah. So to see you now today and just to see where your faith has taken you is amazing. But to see it and to say hear from one's experience is another thing. And you've lived it. So after now you've moved on, you've come to faith, you are married, you're now dealing with this experience in Sunnybrook. How was your mental health in regards to dealing with all of that?
Um, yeah, I was a bit down, but Tyra was always there.
Hmm.
Yeah, she was always there. In my faith, I was anchored. So when I was at Sunnybrook, they put me in the isolation, right?
Hmm.
Quarantine, because I was contagious, right? So
Right.
I got my own room. So I
I
was
remember
happy about
that.
that. I got my own room. So I was
Yeah.
like, all right, this ain't so bad. It was quiet, I had my own space. Yeah, but it was bad. Yeah, my face was bad. It was bagged up, um, unrecognizable.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it was a dark time for me. And then the doctors coming with different ideas and plans to heal me, with different plans. Um,
And what were those plans, if you can
some was like
recollect?
one of them was like radiation treatment,
Okay.
some experimental radiation treatment. And like, man, yo, man, I watched enough cartoons and no luck, man. Yo, these doctors coming to you to run some test, man. You about to
Yeah.
turn into some kind of super villain. I'm like, look, man, I'm not that dude. I'm not that guy. And even like there was one doctor who came, and she tried to, approach me on Afrocentric tip. And she said, yo, they don't know nothing about us. They
Mhm.
don't know nothing about us. You know, come get this treatment. As a black man, you need to get this kind of treatment,
Mhm.
you know. And I said, thanks, but no thanks.
Mhm.
I said, thanks, but no thanks. I'm not, yeah, I'm not gonna be nobody's guinea pig.
Right. Right.
That's just, yeah. And I was just like, and I remember the doctors were getting mad at me. And one of the doctors said to me, because they were also telling me, this other doctor was telling me, this white doctor was telling me like, oh, um, take the steroid. But I'm like, but I just came off the steroid. He's
Mhm.
like, no, well, use it, and because you can get better, whatever the case may be. And he says, yeah, like, look at you, look at you, you're suffering. You're making your wife suffer. Don't you love your wife? Like, if you love your wife, you'll take this medication.
Wow.
Well, at that point, you know, um, I turned into Michael Jordan. I took that personally. I took that
Yeah,
personally. I said,
yeah,
"What?"
yeah.
I said, "What did this guy just tell me? I don't love my
Mhm.
wife because I'm not taking this medication, or I'm not gonna take this thing." And at that point, I said, "All right," because you know what? And um, anybody that knows me, I'm petty. I always joke with my wife. I call myself Petty D. Petty D. Yeah, I'm a petty guy. Um, like if you tell me I can't do something, or you try to, oh man, the switch goes off.
Yes.
And at that point, I was like, all right, bet, bet. And so I said, all right, I'm out. And then from that point on, I just went natural path and I did my own thing and just studied and learned it for myself. Like just learned and started to think for myself and stop deferring to the experts, because all these guys were doing for me is just trying things out on me, like testing things out that they don't know,
So
right?
what
And yeah, 'cause if they knew, just
Mhm.
simple, if they knew, I'd have been better. That's it. If you knew, I would be better. The fact that I'm not better means you don't know. So stop pretending like you know. And then at that point, you have to take responsibility for yourself and your health, and that's what I
So
did.
when you were at Sunnybrook, what treatments did you permit them to do before you could actually leave the hospital?
All they did was take blood,
Okay.
and antibiotic. I didn't let them test nothing on me.
Okay. So they
You
did a
know,
lot
and
of antibiotics to be able to help the virus to be able to calm down that was going on.
yeah,
So at least you could come out of isolation.
yeah, yeah, that was it. But these guys were trying to give me all kinds of stuff, and like, it's funny, not to divert, but I think it's still consistent. So that's why, right when the pandemic hit, they're like, but now they're rolling out vaccines because of my because of my interaction with
Yep.
these guys prior, right? So everybody has their own little history
Mhm.
of medicine and thing. I have a history
Yeah.
with these guys who have PhDs or who are doctors. I barely passed high school. I passed high school like what, almost like a 50 average,
Mhm.
right? Like I'm not the smartest guy, but I'm not a fool. Like I'm wise. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
so at that point when they were rolling this stuff out, and they're like, "Oh yeah, well get the vaccine if you love people." I'm like, "Yeah, the doctor told me to take medication of this medication if I love my wife." Like I've been there. I've
Mhm.
been there already. I've already been what's the word? Um right? The peer pressure,
Mhm.
right? And if it's one thing my daddy, your brother told me is,
Yep.
he always taught me is like, "Yo, don't do anything unless you want to do it.
Exactly.
Don't be a follow bati." Darnell Mark Samuels is not a follow bati.
Right. Right.
I don't follow no man but Jesus Christ.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean? There's no peer pressure. There's no peer pressure. There's no need for people to like me, to be a part of this crew, to be this, to be that. I'm my own man. And so
Exactly.
there's nothing you could come and tell me to make me feel bad, to convince me, to manipulate me to do something. And that's just me to a fault.
I like that. So you mentioned that once you got released from Sunnybrook, and how long were you in Sunnybrook again for?
3 weeks, maybe?
Yeah, it was about 3 weeks or a month.
Yeah,
I
three
remember it was a
weeks.
while.
Yeah, yeah, 3 weeks in isolation. Man, I missed home, man. I was homesick, bruh. Oh, man. When I got back to the apartment, I was like, "Man, this is like a mansion. It's
Yeah.
the most beautiful place." Yo, home is home, eh? Your old bed, your old shower. I was kissing the ground when I got back to that old dirty apartment.
But it's home. No place like home
It's
when it's your own.
home.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
never felt I felt like, "Yo, this is the greatest apartment ever." For Silver Maple,
It
roof
makes you
to
appreciative of what you have when you're stuck in the
man,
hospital. That I understand.
yo, and so that's why, when I do go to the hospital, I'm definitely reflecting all the time and prayerful for everybody there. And sorry, I just wanted to make one point about nurses. In that, when you go to a hospital, it's pure darkness. In the sense that people are suffering all around you from room to room. You got everybody
Mhm.
knows, everybody's listening. You go from room to room, it's darkness.
Yeah.
People dying, like making all kinds of crazy noise. But then you have nurses in there, and the
Hmm.
nurses are representative of grace and hope. And these people come in every day to deal with people who are all kinds of sickness. And the fact that the nurses are there means that there's hope. And and shout out to all the nurses that I dealt with, and they were, man, they're a gift from God, that they're there. So shout out to all the nurses, who put up with all kinds of madness and still come in every day to, help people get better.
Because really, they're the ones that are with the patients all the time. The
Yeah.
doctors pop in here and there, but the nurses are
Yeah.
there all the time. So
Oh
they
man, they're
really,
the best,
yeah, yeah, they
the
really
greatest.
do deserve their full respect.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you mentioned that you started going the naturopathic route. So were you just focusing on just more of a naturopathic doctor, a dietitian, traditional Chinese medication, or did you do like the whole plethora of them?
Yeah, so, Chinese Chinese medication, like, teas. So I see a guy, and he has an unconventional way of doing things, but, I like the way he thinks. Um,
So sorry to interrupt you, but so did you start off with naturopathic treatment straight first, or did you go into Chinese traditional Chinese medication right after that?
natural I was always on and off with naturopath, like, from the time earlier in my Sheridan days, but, um, this time I was just doing Chinese.
Okay.
And, shout out to my doctor, Dr. Vu Lee, and this is beautiful, man, because there was a point where the medicine wasn't working, and he said that, and he said, "Look, like, I can only get you to this point.
Now, which
If this doesn't
medicine
work."
were you talking about? Sorry about that. Which
Chinese,
medicine?
Chinese, Chinese,
Okay.
Chinese, Chinese. And so he's like, "Okay, like, I can't get you past this point. I can't help you." Man, those were the greatest words I ever heard in my life in dealing with medicine. This guy just said, "Yo, I can't help you." He admitted like he couldn't help. He's like, maybe you should go look another route. All right, cool. I appreciate that. Because there's only just certain so much I could get to. And then I started going on the other naturopath route. And then that was helpful, Dr. Lisa Watson.
Okay.
And then I sent you one of the breakdowns that she did for me, explaining my situation. But I'll explain to it. So basically,
Mhm.
the issue is inflammation. And so one of the issues that comes out of the inflammation issue is that my cortisol was a dysregulation in my cortisol levels. So that was the main issue. And so the way she looked to treat that is with like B5, B6, and C, um, to support that.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah, and to support my cortisol levels, because it was off. So what the issue was because I was on the steroid cream. The steroid cream was producing cortisol for me. My body no longer naturally produced it,
I
and so
see.
when I stopped using the cream, um, my body no longer produced cortisol, and that's when um, I started having those issues with the sweating and so forth, and the inflammation, and then also my nervous system, and which led to the sleep. So I was on the magnesium and using GABA.
Mhm.
And basically, she was saying like, yeah, the inflammation that I'm getting from the eczema is a leaky gut issue,
Yes.
food intolerance. And so part of that, and part of like my Chinese doctor, he made a very good point, very great, wise observation. He says, look, like, I can't tell you what's wrong with you. You have to tell me what's wrong with you.
Mhm.
You have to start listening to your body. And when you eat these things, you have to start being like, oh, like, um, yeah, you have to start listening to your body.
So in regards to the diet, did your diet change significantly between the Chinese traditional medicine practitioner compared to the naturopath, or was it pretty much the same but just more supplements added?
Yeah, I was trying to scale down, basically clean up my diet, eat clean, right? Just scale down and then reintroduce things, right?
So like you did an elimination diet.
Yeah, yeah, just scale
Okay.
down. And then yeah, but just learn listening to your body and saying, okay, well, if you eat this, the next day you're on fire or whatever the case may be, or you're
Mhm.
gassy. Okay, like what is what is flaring you up? And just learning to listen to your body. Even like Chinese doctor again, he was kind of saying like, yeah, like even like your stool,
Mhm.
like looking at your stool and analyzing your stool will tell you a lot about what is going on with your body and if you're actually healthy or not,
Right.
right? Long brown, soft, sticky is good. Long brown, soft, sticky, smelly is good. Um, Constipation, small balls, not good. Dark, not good.
Exactly.
Right. So these are basic things, but you don't even think of that. You're like, come
Exactly.
on, man. I'm not analyzing my. Come on, man, get out of here.
It's funny with that because, leaky gut syndrome is an issue I struggle with as well, and sympathetic nervous system shot, whole bunch of things with that, which I can tell you at another time. But, what I find that people are not educated that going to the washroom daily is actually important.
Hmm.
I've heard, "Oh, it's fine if you miss 3 days." No, you're
Nobody
eating
here. Yeah,
no, you're eating every day. You should be
yeah,
passing because if that's stuck back inside of you, all of those toxins are just going right back into your body.
yep,
And with a leaky gut, there's no protection. All the negative toxins are going into the body, and then you've lost all that protection. And your skin being the largest organ is completely damaged, so you've lost all of your protection.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. So these are the things like learning to read your body, but then also when I went started seeing Dr. Lisa, she was very helpful in explaining and breaking down the inflammation in my low cortisol level. So then I was taking a lot of supplements to get my body back. And so, very simple. I didn't get to that place overnight, that dark place overnight, my body to
Mhm.
break down. I wouldn't get to full health overnight. And so, there was no quick fix, but I eventually got there slowly but surely through consistent supplements and eating right. And also, getting your mind right. Because, as I tell people, like, when you're sick, when your body goes, your mind goes, and my mind was gone, and I haven't been, everybody knew like I wasn't the same. Just the energy level, the excitement, everybody that knows me, I'm high energy, jokes, yeah. But so it took me a while to get back to my old self.
Yeah.
But the supplements help. Eating right helped. Yeah.
So you mentioned a few of the supplements. Well, you mentioned about taking the GABA and the magnesium. You found those helped you for sleep and what
Mhm.
other the nervousness. What did you find that the doctor prescribed for you for the leaky gut, for example?
Um, well, part of it about so part of it is like it was a series of things, right? So like
Hmm.
part of it, and that's the thing with the natural path, right? There's like elements that complement other parts of your body,
Right.
right? So like I'm taking vitamin D, I'm
Hmm.
taking vitamin A, taking magnesium, taking what's it called? Probiotics,
Yes. Hmm.
right? Probiotics is crucial, but vitamin B, these things and all these things are complementing each other to
Hmm.
fix leaky gut. And on top of that, what you're putting in. So you can't be like eating the things that are tearing your gut apart while taking the medication.
Hmm.
Right. So and I think that's the beauty. Dare I say that? I think that's the beauty of naturopath medicine, is that you're working from the inside out versus the outside in.
Hmm.
And so kind of like the kinetic chain. Your body needs other parts of your body to be functioning to help each other. It isn't just the one thing you're
Hmm.
focusing on. And this is a slow process. It's an expensive process, and that's why people don't do it. And
Hmm.
I'll say this. This is an important conversation to have. I think like when the pandemic hit, I think it was helpful in the sense that people didn't even think about their philosophy on medicine. It never that was never a conversation. People don't think like, "Oh, well, what's your philosophy on religion? What's your philosophy on politics? What's your philosophy on fashion?
Mhm.
What's your philosophy on hair?" But it never occurred to people like, "Okay, well, what's your philosophy on medicine? How do you view how we should approach or how you should approach your health?" And a lot of us aren't educated or informed to think like, I've never thought about that. I just go to the doctor. My skin is itchy. He's going to give me a cream. I'm gonna put the cream on the spot. The spot's gonna go away, and I'm gonna go back to eating hot spicy doubles or jerk chicken.
Right.
You know, and at this state, yeah, you know what I mean. Which is very profound. And so when the pandemic hit, people start to like say, wait a minute, like I don't think I don't think I want to get vaccinated. I don't think I don't think it's right that just different theories and concepts that people are like, well, but my makeup is different. I have other health issues. I don't think I should be taking this vaccine, or I feel like I should, or this whatever the case may be. But it was a good conversation where people start to reflect, like, okay, what is the right way to view my health and how I should be treating myself?
Right. And this is, you actually addressed a strong point because with the vaccines, it's very important for those who have, certain type of medical conditions, underlying medical conditions, but certain medical conditions, it can actually be a contraindicative to their condition. For example, with you, because of what you have experienced with your eczema, the severity of it. And I'm not too sure if medical studies have gotten to the point where they understand that certain vaccinations could affect people with certain complex medical conditions in a negative way. And hence, one of the reasons why you stopped or prevented yourself from taking the vaccine because your body has undergone so much that could actually cause a trigger and set you back.
Yeah,
And I mean, we've heard of some people that have actually taken the vaccine and have experienced a negative side effect when regards to skin, for example, with eczema becoming
yeah,
worse. So you
yeah,
were taking that precaution for yourself. Or for some other people, it's more important that they too take the vaccine because it will protect them.
yes, yeah,
Like one of my good friends, her husband, he is a kidney transplant. And so his immune system is always compromised. So he has to have the vaccine to protect him.
mm,
And even the
mm,
regular dosages weren't even enough. So it depends. It is truly a great conversation to be able to see, and even for medical practitioners to be able to reassess you know the conditions that are out there and who should really be taking what vaccines and how, and just to be able to do more testing, I should say, to see what affects like what vaccines affect which conditions so that we can be able to approach it even better in the future because there's going to be another pandemic in the next 10, 15 years, 20 years, you never know. So are we prepared for that in regards to treating the community medically wise when everyone has different medical conditions?
yeah, yeah. And I think part of the issue is, well, for me, is also like taking responsibility for your health. And
Exactly.
so for me prior, I didn't take responsibility for my health. I just
Mhm.
listened to what the doctors told me. I just said, okay, well, obviously, Dr. Wiley, he delivered me. He brought me into the world. My doctor. He brought me into the world.
Okay, your
And so,
pediatrician. Mhm.
yeah, the same doctor I had my whole life,
Okay, okay.
right? So this is how could I not trust him?
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So the responsibility of my health was in his hands, was in the doctor's hands at Sunnybrook. And so I'm here like losing my life. And at some point I had to take back and I had to be like, look, man, I had to make a decision for myself. I'm like, look, if I'm gonna die, I want to die on my own terms. If I
Mhm.
wanna like I have to take responsibility for my medication for where my health is at. Because I like all the side effects, I experience the side effects. I have to
Yes.
live with those. I have to live with the side effects. He doesn't have to live with the side effects. Those guys don't have to do that. And so for me, like I rather be it on me and I suffer because of my own decision rather than someone tell me something and now I'm suffering, right? So it's the
Exactly.
same thing with the vaccine. Like, you know, there's still waiver papers that you sign, right? So there's no recourse. And to me,
Mhm.
I don't know if that makes sense. Like, if I take the stuff and my arm falls off, like I can't come back to you for a refund. I'm like, no, 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 no,
Right.
no. As
Right.
like, yeah, my mom. Yeah, like, come on, man. We don't. That doesn't make any sense to me. So at some point, like, for me personally, I have to take responsibility. If I'm gonna die, I'd rather die because I thought this was the right thing to do versus them telling me this is the right thing and then I die because of them.
Right. Right. I understand. I understand. And
Yeah.
and it's true. We all have to take responsibility for our own health and our own, our own well-being.
Hmm.
Um, but so right now with your current just where you're at currently, do you find that you're more stable? Do you find that you still go through flare-ups? How are you managing life now?
I'm doing pretty good. I slipped up a while back. Well, even now, like part of it too is like now I'm teaching for the first time, and the lifestyle is a little different, and so I haven't been taking care of myself, and so I found myself having a flare up a while back that threw me off for school, and so now I'm getting back on track and redefining my diet, and getting my body back on track supplement wise. Because one of the issues was I was taking the supplement incorrectly.
Oh.
And so one supplement I was taking
Mhm.
more than I should have, and it threw all the other supplements off where they could
Okay.
no longer be effective, right? So that chemical imbalance, right? So I was taking something more than I should have, and it threw my body off of balance. And then on top of that, I wasn't eating right. Because
Mhm.
there's certain things that I was being undisciplined in my eating. Um, and so it threw me off and put me out of commission for a bit. And so now I'm just getting back on track and taking the right supplements and eating right. And part of that too is, eating is a lifestyle thing. And when I mean lifestyle, it's how you grew up. Um, and so, we grew up eating spicy. I can't eat that way no more.
Right.
Um, shout out to my grandma. She passed a couple months
Mm.
back. Um, but I laughed at my grandma because she was as she was dying. I was like, "Yo, mama, like, how are you like 80 years old and you have a diet of an 8-year old? Like, she eating stuff that I don't eat."
Right. Right.
You know what I mean? So I'm like, "Yo, mama, like, yo, yo, like, yo, chill, like, chill on the sweet milk, yo, chill on the pop. I don't even really drink pop like that." She's like, "Oh yeah, can you pick me up Popeyes?" I'm like, "I don't even eat Popeyes, mama. Like, well, come on, man. What are you?" But we're habit. This is how we eat, right? And especially
Mhm.
if you're coming from a family where food is your love language, so even when you are suffering, we still eat the food,
Right. Right.
right?
It
Even when we're suffering and our health is struggling, we still eat the food because it comforts us.
Right. So instead of focusing on eating to live, um, we live to eat.
Hmm. Yep, definitely. And so, the peppers, my mom's Trinidadian, the pepper sauces and all this stuff, and you're always, putting pepper on stuff. And but if you have leaky gut, that stuff's gonna leak into your bloodstream and come out through your skin. Your pepper's potent. That's nothing to play with.
Right.
So it's funny, man. I hate Jamaican food now. I
Oh,
I,
really?
I hate
Yeah,
Jamaican
because the
food.
Scotch bonnet is
Yo,
inflammatory. Yes. Yes, it
yo,
is. I had to cut out Scotch bonnet, and it was very
yo.
hard for me because I love Scotch bonnets.
These guys, yo, no
Yeah.
diss to Jamaicans, man. Yo, man, but yeah, fire, there's pepper in everything. So like when I go to a Jamaican restaurant, there's nothing I could eat.
Right.
There's nothing I could really eat there. You know what I mean? Like even like the fried chicken or the barbecue sauce. Barbecue sauce has pepper in it. Everything has pepper. So I kind of have to be like, okay, you know what? I have to start getting creative or pre-planning meals. In turn, I do that.
Mhm.
But just going away from how you grew up and your default eating habits have to change. You have to take responsibility for it because look, like I just mentioned, you asked me what do I do? I do a podcast, I teach, I serve at my church. Like all those streams need me.
Mhm.
They need me to be on point. I can't be like, "Oh, yo, I can't show up. My health is oh, I can't do the podcast. My health. Oh, I can't teach. Oh, my health. Oh, I can't teach Sunday school. Oh, my health." Well, then fix your health, bro. So you at some point you got to cut out the things and start progressing.
Mhm. Mhm. And
Y-
it sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and I was going to say also yeah, and I coach as well, right? So like even that. So yeah.
Which it's you know what? And I'm so happy for you that you found a system that has worked to be able to help you to manage your health. It's not always easy when it comes to complex medical conditions because there's still illnesses that are enigma that it's so complex to handle. You think you're handling it at one point, and then something else occurs that makes it worse. So, I mean, for some people, it works where you can be able to stick with a diet and there's consistency. For some people, it's getting just to a point where they can be able just to manage around their daily life.
Mhm.
Just the basics of around their house. So, just to our listeners, it's not everyone can be able to get back to work as they want to, but the main thing is taking care of your health to the best that you can to manage just the basics, even in life, is so important. And
Yeah.
I'm just so happy for my nephew, Darnell, just to see what he has gone through and that he's been able to manage his health, to be able to finish university, finish teachers college, going on to be a teacher now, coaching and all these things that I've known him to do in the past. And
Mhm.
his health had inhibited so much from him living the life that he wanted to. And now that he's able to do that. And you mentioned that you realized you were taking the supplement, that we were taking a supplement that was compounding on the other supplements. So it wasn't allowing everything to balance. Was it something that you discussed with your naturopath, or was it something that
Yeah,
you
yeah.
figured
Oh,
on
yeah,
your
yeah.
own?
We did blood work. We did blood work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We did blood work and figured it out. Right. We figured it out
Hmm.
together. And so there's different philosophies on how they analyze the blood work, how different doctors
Exactly.
analyze. But I didn't even know that. Right. So this is why it's important to really like, yo. I would encourage everybody, like, yo, like, figure out your philosophy as a family, especially as a family, and you have kids.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because like, yeah, like, no diss, and this is this, no, this is no diss to any mother, but like, if your kid is suffering at your hands because you don't under because of your philosophy on medicine, it impacts your kids.
Hmm.
It impacts your kids because you're like, oh well, you know, the way you process and see how health should be approached, whether food or medication wise. Yeah, maybe I should, maybe your kid should take this medication that has side effects,
Hmm.
right? Is that the right? Maybe we should do another route that has no side effects. Maybe.
Exactly.
I would also attribute my health, my turnaround to getting married and marrying Tyra.
Hmm.
And I'll say this because prior to Tyra, like I didn't have a good diet. I didn't grow up eating right.
Hmm. Hmm.
Right. As I tell people, I had a video game diet. Right.
Yeah.
So back then I was gaming, right? So what's a video game diet? Things that you could put in the oven and come back later and get chicken fingers, frozen pizza, Pop Tarts, sandwiches, right? Waffles, cereal, things that you can still play video games.
Hmm. Hmm.
still,
Exactly.
still,
Exactly.
still,
Yeah.
right? So that was my diet. When I married
Yeah.
her, and then she came in, she's like, okay. She's like, "Nah." She's like, because she's culinary inclined.
Yes, she
Anybody who
is.
knows her, yeah, she got skills, and
Hmm.
so she's like, "Well, why buy chicken fingers when you can make your own chicken fingers? Why,
Exactly.
um, you know, do this when you can do it yourself?" So when she came in, she cleaned up my diet, and really, and I noticed that's when my health really started to change, and I was like, "Oh shoot!" I'm like, "Yo, this woman like really like brought me back to good health."
Mm.
And I didn't realize, and she would teach me about food. And she would teach me like, okay, well, look, you put that in your body, it's going to do this to you. Try taking this out and put this in. And even like if you have a more complex diet, then you really have to be culinary inclined and disciplined.
Mhm.
She goes, does the grocery shopping, she plans ahead, she prepares the meals, she understands how these things work. As opposed to me, I'm kind of like, I'm more functional. I'm like, look, man, you only eat to survive and move on to the next task. That's me. I'm like, look, man, you about to finish this book, you about to finish up this essay, we about to work out, so we only eat to get to that point. But Tyra's like, no, 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 no. We're gonna sit down, we're gonna break down this meal, make it delicious, make sure it has all the right ingredients.
Mhm.
She doesn't like substituting. She always like, no,
Yes.
no, we don't substitute ingredients around here. Butter is not margarine, and margarine is not butter. Those are two
Exactly.
different things. I was like, really?
Yes.
She's like, yeah, different things, man. She's like, yo, she's schooling me, man. Beautiful, man. I love my wife, man.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So that's why I say, yo, fellas, yo, man, yo, man. Eating is very important. So make sure, if you can connect with somebody who's got more skills than you, yo, do it.
very much so, very much so. Well, Darnell, I would like to thank you so much for sharing your story and being part of the Freedom to Know Wellness podcast today. Please again share us with us where we can actually follow you on social media and also on your podcast.
Yeah, yeah. And I just want to say thank you for the opportunity, Auntie Michelle. And this is a great show and a great idea to have these conversations about health. Yeah, thank you. It's been an honor to be on the show. And I pray that the show would do well.
Thank you, thank you. So, where can we follow you on social media?
So I'm on Twitter and Instagram under Do Good at Darnell, DOGUDDA_Darnell. Facebook, Darnell Samuels, and then sixsensereport.com to check out the show. And then Thanks Coach is on all podcast platforms, and Six Sense Report, SIXCENTS Report is on all podcast platforms.
Perfect. Thank you. So, for our listeners who want further information on eczema, you can go to www.eczemahelp.ca. I always believe that reading information is one thing, but hearing from an individual's lived experience is another. And that's what we do here at Freedom to Know Wellness. Thanks and have a great day. For information on Darnell's naturopath, Dr. Lisa Watson, go to www.drlisawatson.com. And if you would like to have your voice heard on Freedom to Know Wellness, email us at info@freedomtoknowwellness.ca. Follow our blog at freedomtoknowwellness.substack.com and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at FTK Wellness.